It's almost 6:34 in my clock, so let's get started. Um, Again, my name is Khurshid Bilgrami, also known as KB. I'm with DOT Montgomery County, project engineer for Cherry Hill Road Buffered Bike Lanes project. This is a capital improvement project, and with me I have Michael Giuliano, my design consultant, and our host tonight is Lori Main from the DOT, and you won't see her, but she's running the Zoom meeting here, and the Zoom meeting controls are up on the screen, so your microphones and your video is all automatically turned off. We have to save the bandwidth so that all the participants can see and hear what is transpiring in the meeting. So that is why it's turned off. Tonight's presentation will be a PowerPoint followed by a question and answer session. But if you want to write a comment or a question, please feel free to do so. You can write in the chat box to our host, Lori Main. And if you have to say something in between, you can always raise your hand. Go to at the bottom of the screen, go to the reactions icon, pick up the hand, raise your hand, and then it will be answered. But I would humbly suggest at this point to let us present all the presentations, and then in the question and answer, you have a no time limit. You can ask whatever you need to ask regarding the project, regarding the design, or regarding the roadmap. With that, I think I will get started. Let's move to slide number 1. So this is the Cherry Hill Road. Just you see a photo on the slide, and the project limit for tonight's discussion is between the Prince George's County line all the way up to Old Columbia Pike, west of US 29 interchange. So it's a big, long 1.5 mile length of Cherry Hill Road we are talking about, and we'll be presenting tonight. Next slide, please. Now, at the beginning of my presentation tonight, I said this is a CIP project, transportation project, of course, by the DOT, and the slide which you see on your screen shows the 3 broadly classified phases of the transportation project, and this is one among them. So I'm still in the phase 1, which is facility planning. What we did, we collected data, and we did the survey of the area, and we developed some concepts, and then of course we are presenting it to the community and all that. So after that, it goes through selection of the most desirable concept, and then it goes through the real design, developing of the plans, and then developing the cost estimates of the project, and then of course it goes to the county executive for approval, and the county executive sends it to the county council for approval, and then once it gets properly funded, it goes through the final design and to construction. Now you might see the same information at the end of the project when I will describe what the next steps are. So just remember what I said here. Next slide, please. So tonight's agenda for the project is the bike facility, the project background, what are the existing conditions, and the traffic analysis we did, and then the 3 proposed alternatives we have for the design for implementing buffered bike lanes on Cherry Hill Road. Of course, it's a 1.5 mile long road, so we don't have the plans to include this presentation because it's going to take forever. So we came up with typical cross sections so that Mike and myself can explain you what those options are, and then of course the schedule, and then followed by question and answer session. Next slide, please. Just to overview of the plan, Cherry Hill Road, the project limit is from the county line to Old Columbia Pike. On the east side, the county right-of-way terminates approximately 400 to 450 feet east of FDA Boulevard, and then it continues west up to US 29, crossing US 29, and then my project limit terminates at Old Columbia Pike, maybe slightly past that. We are not going to Old Serpentine with the plans, I guess, or we may. But at this point, we have chosen to end at Old Columbia Pike. So it's basically between FDA Boulevard and Old Columbia Pike, which is very challenging. Next slide, please. So the reason why we selected this project is because the Bikeway Master Plan was fully adopted in 2018. It calls for buffered bike lanes, a two-way cycle track, if you may, on the south side of the roadway. And that is the improvement is listed in the Tier 1 bikeway column in the master plan. So actually, the master plan calls for buffered bike lanes. So specifically, two-way cycle track on the south side of the roadway. Now, as you may be familiar, what a two-way cycle track is. So there is a photo here on the screen which you may see, which we got from NACTO, the National Association of City Transportation Officials. But Montgomery County already implemented a two-way cycle track at a lot of other places. But just to show you how it operates, we just gave you an example. I think most of the meeting participants here have been in Bethesda after the pandemic. So this is Oakmont Avenue in the photo. This is a two-way cycle track. I think this is beyond the restaurant, but it is also in the commercial as well as the official area of Woodmont Avenue. So you see a photo here, and that is how it looks like if you're not familiar with what a two-way cycle track is. Next slide, please. Now, existing conditions on Cherry Hill Road, the classification based on Complete Street Design Guide for Cherry Hill Road is it's a town center boulevard, and actually the name Cherry Hill Road changes if you go east of US 29 because our project limit is all the way to Old Columbia Pike. It becomes East Randolph Road. So, but the Cherry Hill Road from FDA to almost US 29 interchange is posted as 40 miles per hour, and the right of way is almost like 90 feet. And East Randolph Road is classified as boulevard, and it has a slightly 10-foot less right of way than Cherry Hill. It's like 80 feet. And there are bike lanes already painted on Cherry Hill Road and on East Randolph, and those are some places it's kind of like narrow down to 3.754 feet, and then at some places it's 5 feet. And I think at the Plum Orchard traffic light, as you get closer to the intersection, either from the east or the west, as the intersection opens up with turn lanes, the bike lane disappears. So literally, there is no bike lane at Cherry Hill and Plum Orchard. So we have the right of way, and then the master plan, of course, called for buffered bike lanes. And then the way the topography and the surrounding land use of Cherry Hill Road, mostly close to the interchange. On the south side, it's all commercial, automobile dealerships and other offices and all that. And on the north, it's all residential. So it feeds both residential and commercial. And the intent of these bike lanes is from the interchange or from Old Columbia Pike all the way up to Boulevard is, of course, one can bike from the US 29 and Cherry Hill interchange all the way up to FDA with ease and with comfort. Now, so in order to build that, we developed three options, and then I will bring in my design consultant, Michael Giuliano. He will explain you what those three things or those three alternates are, and then how they collected the data and analyzed it, which alternate will have what implications and in terms of level of service, queuing, and all that. So with that, I will ask Michael Giuliano to come in and take over the presentation, please.
Sure. Thanks, KB. Good evening, everyone. So the next couple of slides are going to show you a couple typical sections of of the existing conditions that are out there on Cherry Hill. They show kind of the lane usage as well as the bike lanes. We kind of took, being a 1.5 mile corridor, we do have concept plans prepared. Those are up on the website for everyone to take a look at. But for the presentation, we decided to show typical sections to kind of display what we're talking about, noting that the concept plans have multiple plan sheets to them, so there'd be a lot to go through. So the first one here you're looking at, this is looking just west of US 29, looking east. So you can see the bike lane on either side of the road, and turn lanes. Next slide there, Lori, please. The second typical section we took is just west of O'Fallon Street. As you make the turn there, coming down between Broadbirch and Plum Orchard, or Prosperity and Broadbirch. So you can see, the bike lane does tend to narrow. The existing bike lane narrows. There is kind of a center two-way left turn lane, and then you have the 2 lanes in each direction. Next slide, please. And the third typical section that we took is kind of just west of FDA Boulevard, which is kind of on the tail end of the project limits. Road does get a little wider out there, but you can see the bike lanes there. Next slide. So first part of our as part of our project here, we collected some traffic data so that we could do some traffic analysis, looking at the two-way cycle track and how that operates with the existing traffic signals that are within the corridor. There's 6 signalized intersections, and then there's 2 unsignalized intersections. So there's a few major intersections that we needed to evaluate. So we did collect turning movement counts, get existing volumes, understanding how many people are actually driving on the roadway today, and then what kind of bicycle usage is out there as well, plus pedestrian activity. So from there, what we did is we evaluated vehicular and pedestrian signal timings at those 6 signalized intersections. We also looked at the surrounding land use and future developments to take those into account. And what we started to do for each of our alternatives was do some capacity-based analysis to see how the effects of each of the alternatives had on traffic operations. And as part of that, we also did some queuing analysis to determine how what the impacts were, and looked at a number of different. So next slide, please. So the 3 alternatives that we did. So we looked at the first alternative involved the two-way cycle track on the south side, and what we looked at was reducing the eastbound direction through lane. So we did kind of like a partial road diet, and tried to evaluate Cherry Hill Road in the eastbound direction as 1 through lane instead of the 2. What this would do would allow to put the bike lanes on the south side and would minimize the widening that had to happen and right-of-way acquisition. The second alternative looked at the two-way cycle track on the south side, but maintained existing lane usage that's out there today. So you would have 2 lanes in each direction. This tends to have the more significant widening needed in order to fit the bike lane in, and has a more substantial impact on right-of-way. The third alternative kind of deviates from the master plan in it calls for it looked at separated bike lanes. So what we looked at doing was maintaining a bike lane in each direction, however, widening to add in a buffer between the through lanes and the bike lane to provide a little bit more protection. That had minimal widening to it and would have minimal impacts to the right of way, but also had impacts to both sides of the roadway as opposed to one direction. Go ahead, Lori, next slide. So again, looking at the typical sections, and again, these are kind of all taken in the same spot as the existing conditions. So the first one here being, of alternative 1, just west of US 29, looking east. So you can see on the right side of the screen there, we have 1 through lane approaching the US 29 interchange, and you can see the cycle track on the side of that with a buffer. The westbound direction maintains its lane usage and width. What you do see is that the 2 bike lanes that are out there, the road bikes are kind of taken away as the cycle track is kind of supplementing those, so they're no longer needed. So that width is repurposed to the lanes. And you can see the cycle track on the south side there. So next slide. So this is again looking just is taken just west of O'Fallon Street. Now you'll see that there is kind of a center island today out there. You'll know that there's kind of a two-way left turn lanes, the kind of a dead space in the center. Does allow left turns into some of the businesses and O'Fallon Street. That would be maintained. When you look at the concepts that are listed or provided on the website, you'll see a little bit more in depth as you go along the sections what the alternatives show. So not to, we're showing a planting strip here because some of that space is kind of dead space that we would kind of look at repurposing and utilizing. But you can see in the eastbound direction, there's only one through lane with the cycle track on the just below that. Next slide. So again, tail end of the project limits down by FDA Boulevard. This maintains. So with the project limits going to the county line and the county line kind of being midstream, the cycle track would tend to end at FDA Boulevard and then would kind of transition back to the bike lanes on either side of the road that you see today. It's kind of a natural transition point for us to end at a signalized intersection. So you kind of see the lane usage would return as you head towards the Prince George's County line. But again, we see two lanes here, the right turn lane, and then you have the cycle track on the side. Most of the signalized intersections, when we did our traffic analysis, we had to look at certain phasing changes to account for the cycle track, meaning we didn't want to have left turns turning into the cycle track or right turns. So part of the analysis looks at phasing changes to provide protected turns, so that there's no conflict between the bike lanes and turning vehicles. So that was one of the driving factors for the traffic analysis to see how that interaction played with operations. Being with alternative one that we took down a lane as part of the road diet, and with the phasing changes, naturally we saw a degradation in level of service at most of the signalized intersections. We took away capacity. Cherry Hill, there's a lot of cars out on the road. As many of you know, you all live in the area and traveled it. So there were significant impacts to traffic operations associated with alternative one. Increased delay. We saw queue lengths exceed most of the storage capacity at the intersection. So a lot of impacts to traffic operations. Next slide, please. So moving on to alternative two, and again, alternative two looked at the cycle track, but maintains the existing lane usage that's out there. What we see here is that the impact, we again had to implement a lot of the phasing changes to protect left turns at most of the signalized intersections, but didn't have the reduction in capacity. So you see there are impacts to level of service, but they're not as bad as what the road diet would suggest has or showed. So operations were more at a more comparable and operating what we'd like to see associated with this. So again, this one, you see west of 29, we have two through lanes, but again, the cycle track on the south side there. Next slide. And again, this is at O'Fallon, just west of O'Fallon Street. Again, turn lanes to O'Fallon would be maintained. You'd still have a left turn lane that develops. That is shown on the concepts. Again, this just shows a planting strip, but there would be a left turn for vehicles wanting to turn in onto O'Fallon Street. But again, we show two lanes and the cycle track. And then the third, next slide. And again, here down at FDA Boulevard. So again, two through lanes, a right turn lane with the cycle track on the south side. Next slide. So then alternative three, like I mentioned, looked at installing separated bike lanes. So keeping the bike lanes in each direction on either side of the road, but in this case, widening to provide a buffer. So lane usage in this case matches the same as alternative two. Not a lot, no changes to the existing lane usage. But what we do is provide a buffer between the bike lanes and travel lanes. We did look at continuing and implementing proposed phasing changes to provide protection at the signalized intersections. So operationally, when you look at the analysis, alternatives 2 and 3 are pretty comparable. They have pretty much the same impacts. Alternative 2 being the better, the preferred choice because it actually implements what's dedicated as part of the master plan. So again, looking here, alternative 3 west of US 29, you can see both bike lanes on either side of the road with a buffer. What we would do is narrow travel lanes based on the complete streets design guide, and then provide and then do any curb widening. We looked at doing a lot of the widening as part of this alternative within the available medians that are there to minimize impacts to the outside. Next slide, please. So again, this is looking just west of O'Fallon Street. Again, you can see both bike lanes on either side with a buffer. And again, we would have turn lanes to access O'Fallon Street, so that would be part of it. But you can see the median here is a little less. It's around 8 feet wide versus, I think, in the other alternative was closer to 10 or 11 feet. Next slide, please. And again, looking down at just west of FDA Boulevard. Bike lanes on either side would transition to the bike lanes that are already there, just to the east of the intersection. But here we have the buffer. Next slide, please. So again, just a quick summary of our alternatives. Alternative 1 looked at the two-way cycle track on the south side, but implemented a partial road diet where we reduced the eastbound direction to 1 lane. As I kind of mentioned, significant impacts to level of service throughout the corridor at the 6 signalized intersections. We had queue failures during both peak hours and multiple intersections, and a lot of the intersections' storage capacity was exceeded. Again, a lot of traffic on Cherry Hill Road, so reducing from 2 to 1 lanes. We saw a lot of impacts at the signalized intersections. Alternative 2 then looked at the cycle track on the south side without a road diet. It maintains the existing lane usage out there. So there was a reduction in LOS at some of the intersections, Broad versus Calverton. We didn't see any storage capacity issues. Again, since we didn't reduce capacity, what was being out there, we were able to maintain those capacities. So there weren't any storage queuing wasn't really that affected. So a much better alternative. And then alternative 3, again, separated bike lanes. As I mentioned, operationally and queuing analysis consistent with alternative 2 because they were basically kind of the same, just instead of having 2 bike lanes together, 1 on either side with a buffer. Next slide. So take it back to you, KB.
Yeah, so the project schedule-wise, like I said at the beginning, the life of the transportation project, we have so far collected the traffic data, analyzed it, and then evaluated the 3 scenarios, 3 options which we have developed, and you were just presented with those 3 options and how they will operate in terms of level of service and queuing. And of course, this is my first public meeting which we are having to present the 3 options we have. And all that. So what I humbly request with all the meeting participants is, like Michael has said, we did not have it's a 1.5 mile long corridor. So we have set of plans for concept 1, concept 2, on concept 3, how the will look in terms of the real life striping. So these are like the striping plan on a GIS road view, and they are posted on our website. So please, I request you guys to go through review the 3 concepts which we have posted on our website. And then there is also a comment form where you can comment and provide your comments. And of course, everybody the last slide will have my contact information. We'll provide my email address. You can email me directly and all that. So what is important at this point is reviewing the 3 concepts and providing us with your comments, and your preferred concept is the important, so that we could select a concept and then take further developing plans, and then we'll proceed with the project. Now, in March, we are having this public meeting. So I would expect I will leave the comments open for at least 2 to 3 weeks, and you can submit your comments. So today is like almost we are in the mid of March. So let's say end of March we'll have the date for the comments. open, so you can still fill out the form online, posted online, or you can email me. And then once we get all the comments, we will go through them very carefully, and then it will also give an idea to choose one of the concepts and then take it further into the design. And then we'll start developing the design plans to the next phase. And then once we have 30 to 35% design plans, we will have another similar, community meeting, so that we could show you exactly what those 35% plans are, how much the estimate is, and on all that. And of course, as for the life of the transportation project cycle, it goes through the county exec, and then it gets approval, and then through to the council, and then it gets approval and then funded and all that. But I was told by my superiors that this particular project, has state funding already, so there is already some money in the pot, and if our estimate falls within to build whatever alternate we chose, then it will go to construction quickly. But if it doesn't, then of course it will go through again the process, and there will be we have to request for more funding from the state and all that. So it's just a matter of that. So another important aspect of this project, which I would like to address, I'm sure a lot of you might have questions about WSSC's water main relocation. I have been in touch with the project engineer. His name is Yiping Liu. He works for WSSC, and he provided me a map. They are starting from Gracefield, the water main relocation, and the project is starting in summer of 2024 from Gracefield, and then it slowly progresses into Cherry Hill Road from Gracefield all the way up to PG County line. That's how the alignment he showed me. He shared a map with me, and by next summer, 2025 summer, I think Cherry Hill will be dug up, and then there will be water main relocation. So our project is right behind them. It's not an overlap, but we'll try best. If we are reaching to our final design, we will try to work with them. And if they are delayed for whatever reason, then we will collaborate with them 100%. That's a very important thing, which I think most of you have some questions about, like, okay, what's up with WSSC and all that. So WSSC is first. They are starting this summer, and like I said, we are still in a process of choosing a design alternate, and then so we are behind. With that, next slide, I think, is questions. Yeah. So now the floor is open for questions. Please feel free to ask any questions you may have.
We do have a question in the chat, KB. Peter Gray would like to know, has there been any consideration of slowing car speeds as a safety measure and the traffic impacts?
Okay, I will answer that. The posted speed is 40 miles per hour, and then we, based on the existing condition, we collected the data and all that. But if you considering the classification based on complete stride design guide, it should be lower speed limit than 40 miles per hour. I think the speed should be around 35 or even 30, because I'm seeing reduction in speed limits on other corridors like Georgetown, River Road, and Great Seneca, and all that. So I think it's coming. That's a separate division which takes care of adjusting the speed limits based on the complete street design classification and all that. But we can definitely look into it. We can pass on this information to them for the lowering the speed limit. That was in our agenda to begin with. Thank you.
Okay, next question. Will this require widening Cherry Hill Road near Plum Orchard Drive?
Yes, it does. Mike, you want to answer?
Yeah, depending on which alternative you're looking at, there's significant widening. And again, the concepts that are on the website, which you'll have availability to look at, you can kind of see the extent of what we're doing at each intersection. But obviously, when we're looking at alternative 2, where we keep the lane usage the same, we do have to do a lot of widening. And at Plum Orchard, there's significant amount of widening. It all takes place on the south side of the roadway, but there is some pretty substantial widening. And I want to say it's roughly around 5 to 6 feet. I think that we estimated that we'd have to widen out in order to fit things in.
Okay, and will there be bicycle lane signage added along the bike corridor?
Yeah, there will be a signage.
Yeah. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, there as design advances. Again, these are pretty preliminary concepts that you see, so not full construction plans or anything like that. But yes, there would be additional signage that supplements the installation of the bike lanes along the corridor
And striping.
and striping it.
Okay, and another question, what are the cost differences between alternatives 1, 2, and 3? And then Mr. Solomon made a comment, clearly 2 or 3, the alternatives 2 or 3 are preferable since they do not take away a lane of traffic.
I think I agree with that. Obviously, alternate 1 has less cost impact because we are not widening in alternate 1, and then we are also like taking away the lane and converting eastbound lane and converting that to a cycle track. So that will be the least expensive option. But the option 2 and 3 requires a roadway widening, so that's where the impact of the right of way and the road widening, adjustment to the utilities and all that will be an expensive option. So once an alternate is chosen and then goes to the design, then with the 35% design, the real cost estimate will be developed. So that will give an idea. Now between alternate 2 and alternate 3, there will be some difference of cost depending on the utility impacts and relocation of utilities and all that. So we cannot be precise, but yeah, those 2 options will be, I think, will be in the ballpark, right, Mike?
Yeah, so we did come up with some preliminary costs. Like KB said, alternative 1, given the reduction in lane, what it did is it'll minimize the amount of roadway widening that had to happen. So it is significantly less than it's about almost it's a little bit more than half of what the cost of the alternative 2 is. And we're talking alternative 2 is roughly around $6 million, just to give you an idea. That doesn't include acquisition of right of way that would have to happen. So again, with alternative 2 being maintaining the existing limits, we have to widen a lot, which then kind of pushes us into having to do a fair amount of right of way acquisition. So that's also a driving factor. Alternative 3 does come in roughly around the same cost as alternative 2, and the reason being is we looked at some other additional. When you see that on the concept, you'll notice that I think it's at Calverton. There is a channelized right turn in the southbound direction, which kind of a big push is to eliminate those. So as part of doing buffer bike lanes on either side of the road, that was one thing that we took into account. So there's some added costs into that. So.
Okay, next question. Will a crossing be added across Cherry Hill Road at Calverton Boulevard on the west side? There is currently only one crossing on the east side.
We can look into that. It could be added. We will certainly evaluate. If this is a comment, we will certainly take this home and then we'll make sure to address it.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, the concepts don't show that, but if commented on, we would definitely take a look at that to add that in.
Okay, how much widening is entailed in alternative 3?
It is minimized in alternative 3. So we're trying to. There is a little bit of widening towards 29 and Prosperity. We're widening into the median, not on the outsides. There is widening associated as you go down on the south side. It is similar to alternative 2, and that's because today we have the bike lanes out there, but again, they're like in some sections less than 4 feet wide. So curb to curb, there isn't enough width, right? So to add in a 3-foot buffer, we're looking at adding in 6 feet of actual pavement width. So we're doing at least 6 feet of widening on either side. Some sections closer to 7 or 8. And as KB had mentioned, when you look at Plum Orchard, where the bike lanes disappear, now you're looking at widening even more. So there is some substantial widening to alternative 3, and it somewhat mirrors what you see as part of alternative 2.
We have from Sandra Hansen a comment and a question. She says, I feel it would be safer for all concerned to widen the sidewalk. Has a cost-benefit study for sidewalk widening been conducted?
We did not do a cost-benefit study for a sidewalk, but definitely our job is to make sure that standard Montgomery County standard sidewalk width exists on either side, on both sides of the roadway. That will make sure we'll do it.
Okay, we do have a hand raised, and then we can go back to the chat questions. Let's hear from Quinyu Hu. I apologize if I did not pronounce that correctly.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Tian from MDOT. May I ask, you mentioned the widening, and I want to confirm the widening just make some wide to the median, or it will be extended to both sides?
Michael just described the widening part. Close to the auto dealers, it's close to US 29. It will be, if there is a median, we'll take the median. And then as you go further east at Cherry Hill or Plum Orchard, we will be taking to add the bike lanes at approximately 5 to 6 feet of the right of way.
Okay, thank you. May I ask if there will be a traffic impact analysis study for your proposed 3 alternatives?
Yes, we did. Michael just presented that. We kind of like collected all the traffic counts and the data, 13-hour traffic counts, including peds and bikes included. And then as we developed these 3 alternates, we checked what impact it will have on level of service, queuing for all these 3 alternates. And Michael just presented the outcomes of the recommendations. And if you contact me, if you email me, I can give you the complete analysis if you want to refer to that.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I want to know if you will send this to the SHA for the approval or review.
Yeah, I will do that.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have some more questions in the chat. Bernadine Carnes says, would like to know if there was any consideration of wider sidewalks or perhaps a shared use path where bikes and pedestrians can share as opposed to the bikeways per the master plan.
The project was initiated and it was included in the CIP project, and then I'm taking the baton and running, right? So the master plan calls for specifically as a tier 1 improvement, buffered 2-way bike lanes on the south side of the roadway on Cherry Hill Road. The master plan does not call for a shared use path or any of the other type of facility. Now, whatever is mentioned in the master plan regarding the bike lanes, like I said, I just answered in the previous question that we will also make sure that both sides of the roadway has Montgomery County's standard sidewalk width all along the corridor installed in place.
Okay. All right, Sandra Hansen says there is also additional development occurring. How does lowering the speed limit or taking a lane away serve the public?
These are the options that are studied right now. We are not going to take the lane away unless the participants in this meeting, they all write me an email saying that their preferred option is alternate 1. That's a different story. But definitely the lowering the speed limit or doing a road diet, definitely it will have implications on the level of service at the intersections as well as queues and all that. So it all depends on the intent. Why do we implement a road diet on a roadway? If you want to achieve traffic calming, if you want to calm the traffic and have the corridors safe for people who are crossing the street and or people who are also biking along the street and things like that. So we are implementing bike lanes on this, and then uh, considering the the new set of rules we have and the new classification of Cherry Hill Road, I think reducing the lane is also recommendable. So we are not there yet, but we will look into it based on the complete design guide classification, and it should have a lower speed limit. Now, what implications it will have? Uh, I think that depends on all these nodes, which are like 6 signalized locations. So the flow uh, will not the capacity will not affect unless you chop off the lane or you take away the lane. If you reduce the speed limit from 40 to 35 and have the same signal cycle timings with all the 6 signals in this corridor, I don't think it will affect the capacity.
Okay. Christopher Broom says a bike lane that isn't protected is not a bike lane. Kevin Gordine says asks, with the bike lane next to dark cars east of Prosperity Drive, will the dealer exit be required to close?
The dealer exit won't close, but we will, if there is a cycle track on the south side of the roadway, we will have signing and marking indications when they cross the cycle track. And there are special signs and special type of markings which we will install when the cycle track crosses a private driveway. But in the dealer access, the Toyota dealership access will not close.
Okay. Stephen Panosian says there is only one crossing also at Cherry Hill and Plum Orchard. So I think they probably would like an additional crossing there as well.
Both on east and west side. Certainly, it's a good comment, and we will definitely look at it when we sit down for designing or whatever alternates we decide to proceed with.
Okay.
It's a valid comment.
Steve Solomon says, you mentioned state funding for this project. How much is that? And is that money earmarked for this specific project or any MCDOT bike project? Could it possibly be impacted by the $3 billion state transportation budget shortfall?
No, it won't be. I think it is appropriated for this project. I was told by my superiors that it's around 6 mil.
Bernadine Carnes would like to know, have studies been done on two-way bike lane accidents? Mindsets are geared for vehicles all going in the same direction. Signage may not help because people have been looking for bikes, etc., going with the traffic.
We have been constantly monitoring the bike counts as well as bike crashes throughout Montgomery County. There is a team which does that as part of Vision Zero. So all those stats are posted on county's website if one wants to look at it. But we don't have a significant or an alarming number of crashes involving at cycle tracks, especially crossing the driveways and things like that, where we are alerted to the fact that maybe we shouldn't become cycle track. No, so there could be crashes, I agree, but it's not to the extent of like it's alarming the design of cycle track itself. And all that cross stats are all posted on county's website. Anybody could take a look at it.
Okay, Monica Chu says, just incidentally, I've noticed a significant uptick in car accidents on this stretch of Cherry Hill in the last year or so, particularly around Plum Orchard. Do you think this project addition to the road will improve the traffic patterns there?
Well, option 1 was road diet option, taking away a complete through lane eastbound. So that definitely will have impact on the traveling speed and traffic calming and all that. However, if there are crashes, particularly at the intersection of Cherry Hill and Plum Orchard at signalized intersection, that could be due to some other factors, which thanks for bringing this to our attention. We'll definitely look at it and see what can be done, what remedial measure that could be done at this signalized location to remedy those crashes. It could be the signal facing, it could be the lane configuration, or it could be the lack of turn lane or something like that. So we'll take a look at it.
Okay. Peggy Offington would like to know if this project has been coordinated with the widening of Old Columbia Pike Prosperity Drive project that's actually under design right now.
When it goes to the design phase, this project will be coordinated with the East End, with the PG County staff, as well as any Montgomery County or state highway projects on the West End staff. West End at Old Columbia Pike Prosperity. But ours is like restricting, we are trying to implement only bike lanes along Cherry Hill and East Randolph and tying into whatever the side street has. So we'll remain on Cherry Hill and East Randolph.
Okay. Christopher Broom says, take the lane away. So I think he likes alternative 1.
That's a valid comment. He has, that is well taken. I hope Chris will fill out the comment form and mentions that in the comment form, please.
Bernadine Carnes asks, will the bike paths be joined with bike paths on Broad Birch, Plum Orchard, and Calverton Boulevard? The bike lane on Calverton Boulevard goes nowhere. It just ends, just like other bike lanes on the other streets.
See, when we are doing such a huge project of 1.5 miles long, two-way or one-way side, buffered bike lanes, definitely all the county streets that had a bike lane on it should and will be connected to this to the cycle track or the single buffered bike lane. Definitely, yes.
Okay, Stephen Panosian would like to know if the sidewalk between FDA Boulevard and Plum Orchard Drive is thin, will any of the trees planted around that sidewalk have to be transplanted or cut or removed? Will a second crossing be added at Plum Orchard and Cherry Hill?
Okay. Now, as far as I am concerned, I think if I remember correctly, the sidewalk at FDA Boulevard and Cherry Hill on the south side was done as part of that signalized location and the intersection reconstruction done by FDA. And I'm not sure, but maybe it wasn't 5 foot wide, which is county standard. But if it is not, I will make sure that I've been saying that. I think this is my third time I'm saying that we will make sure that the sidewalks on either side of Cherry Hill Road will be to county standards 5 foot wide. If we are doing a project, then we might as well fix the sidewalk. Now, I don't know where the trees are, but if it impacts the trees, we will try to, our job is to minimize the tree impacts. And then if there is another space or another means to save the trees or use a special material, we'll do. But when we redesign or if we widen the sidewalk by a foot, if it is based on if it is on old standard, like 4 foot wide, if you are making it 5 foot wide, then we are talking about a foot. So I think it will have a minimal impact to the trees. But at the same token, if the sidewalk which we installed there from FDA to Plum Orchard, especially on the south side, because I think it was fairly new, was done maybe 5-7 years ago when I was involved with that signal reconstruction. That is why I remember. If it is a standard 5 foot sidewalk, then we don't need to do anything.
Okay, and will a second crossing be added at Plum Orchard and Cherry Hill?
Definitely, we will consider that when we do this project. All those signal plans will be redone by Mike's team, and definitely we'll consider that. We'll make sure at Cherry Hill as well as Plum Orchard, we'll try to evaluate crosswalks on both east and west side of the roadway.
Dan Wilhelm would like to know what future development projects are, I guess, is the county including White Oak, Montgomery College. He would also like details on the bridge over 29 and congestion at Broad Birch.
That's a very broad question. I mean, I'm not going to address the regional congestion and implement a master plan of the roadway. This is a bike lane project. What we did when my design consultant Michael, he can answer that. When they collected the 13-hour count, they went to the park and planning website, and what they saw, they gathered information of the approved development, which are now in the on posted on their website, and then if they are adding any trips, they did add that when they are doing their analysis. That's all we did for designing the bike lanes. But this is not a project where I'm doing a master plan for US 29 or bridge widening or widening Old Columbia Pike and things like that. It was slightly beyond the scope of what we were doing.
I guess I can chime in there. In regards to the proposed development, so we did take a look at, planned approved future developments that are along corridor, and we did take into account those trips as part of our analysis that was done. Regards to the structure, the overpass at the interchange at US 29, you'll notice that it is very wide. There's a lot of shoulder width, so we're able to just kind of restripe the roadway on the bridge structure to fit in the cycle track and or bike lanes. So there's no impact to the structure itself. That's all. It can all be accomplished with just restriping the available width that's already there.
Okay, Stephen Panosian asks, will MCDOT consider adding one or more speed cameras along this bike corridor, especially if the speed limit is lowered to 35 miles per hour, which he supports?
The speed camera program is administered, managed by Montgomery County Police Department.
Yeah, I can send a link in the morning, Stephen.
Right. So yeah, I mean, when the speed limits are lower, if the police department feels like they need to electronically enforce it, they will study this and they will enforce it. They have their own program, but anybody could request it. But what I was told that all the new locations are now goes through the council approval and all that. So there is a process. You can go to the Montgomery County Police website and check it out, please.
Bernadine Carnes asks, if these bike lanes look like the bike lanes on Plum Orchard going to the hospital, then the protected bike lanes are, no offense, stupid. Those lanes are separated by little posts along the bikeway. What is the construction of the buffer separation other than just a grass median?
That's a good question. The bike lanes at the hospital, I think the bike lanes are separated with a through traffic lane. But I don't remember exactly. Maybe it's a narrow painted buffer with flex posts on them, wide flex posts, and which also acts like a buffer, but it's very hard to maintain. But that's not the intent for us to do that kind of a buffering on Cherry Hill Road for this proposed project. We want to do a physical buffer of some sort, just like you see in DC and other places where you have like use of concrete elements or PVC or something physical not those flexi posts.
Yeah, if you go back, Lori,
Yeah.
so in
Okay.
in that image right there, so this is actually Woodmont Avenue. So this is what's installed Woodmont Avenue. So in between there, you can see that there's physical pieces of concrete. What you'll see on the concept plans they show are concrete barrier curbs. They're prefabricated, but they are 8 foot long sections that are 2 feet wide that are full 6 inches high, basically solid blocks of concrete that would line the buffer all the way down the entire stretch. That would provide, separation, physical separation between traffic and the cycle track. So not flex tubes like we see on Plum Orchard.
And this is only one physical type of buffer which you see on Woodmont Avenue, or we are also looking at different types because different jurisdictions are using different types of buffers. We are seeing which ones are effective. You may have seen different ones like made of PVC and things like that in DC, and also when I go to other states, different people are using different ones. So we are still juggling through different designs and different concepts and see how different people are using and getting their usability and their studies, if there are any studies, see which ones are effective and more appropriate for this location. So we'll use that, but definitely nothing like what you see close to the hospital, like only the bike lanes are separated by flexi post. No, that will not happen on Cherry Hill Road. Otherwise, it will be a maintenance nightmare.
All right, Zerahun Abate I'm sorry if I mispronounced that, says there are lots of accidents at the intersection of Cherry Hill and Calverton Boulevard. Is there any plans to, or are there any plans to make it safer?
This is one of the plan to make it safer, to make safer at least one of the users of the roadway, cyclists, as well as, since we are there, like I've been telling all along in the meeting, that we'll also make sure that the sidewalks are standard width on both sides of the roadway. And also there are several people in this meeting where requests have been made to add crossings both on east and west side, both at Plum Orchard as well as at Cherry Hill. That's one way of achieving safety for at least for people who are crossing the street, or well defining the intersection, making it more user friendly and pedestrian compatible and bicycle compatible. That's what we are doing. So I think that will add safety. But again, whatever we do, we'll continue to do it, and we'll get the comments. We'll go back and do projects like these and several other projects in the pipeline. But it all boils down to human behavior. So that is what also very important. Again, the delay on the corridor, and the behavior, and the speed, these are all play important roles in maintaining safety at any signalized intersection. Queue jumping, red light run.
Okay, Tanya Gilchrist would like to know if electric scooters and electric bicycles will be allowed on the bike lane.
Whatever the county code says, whatever the law says, yes.
Okay,
I'm not too familiar because there are different debates about different types of scooters being in the bike lane and some in the sidewalks and all that. So whatever the law, the book says, yeah, they can use it. It's not like this project will allow only motorized scooters in the bike lane, and no, it's not like that. It's based on the county code and the law.
Okay, Paul Daisy pointed out that our comment form is not functioning properly right now. So I just wanted to let everyone know that I will be taking a look at that as soon as we end this meeting, and we'll get that functioning properly.
I checked that this morning, Lori. It was working, but again,
yeah, I don't know, but I'll take a look at it.
Sure.
Kevin Gordine asked if there's been any consideration for a crosswalk on both sides of Cherry Hill and Broad Birch, as well as Calverton Boulevard.
I think I just answered that we will take a look at it when we redesign that intersection. We will definitely consider that.
Do we have any idea as to how many bikers we anticipate will be using the separated bike lanes?
You have to go and read on the master plan, because once we have the facility in place, such as like the cycle track, two-way cycle track with buffer away from the roadway, whatever counts we may have, that is going to increase because it will attract more cyclists to use it once we have the proper infrastructure and the buffer bike lanes in place.
Okay, Stephen Panosian says road signs with blinking lights, such as stop signs, are now being installed along many county roads, and several models have solar panels to power the lights. Will you consider installing these lighted bike lane signs for nighttime cyclists?
I don't know yet if there is a need. It will be evaluated as case by case basis, and then if it is allowed DOT rule to install such lights, yeah, we will. But before we go there, this corridor, Cherry Hill Road, has overhead lighting on either side of the roadway. It has continuous lighting, and if there are places where there's less light and all that, we are in the process of upgrading it, all the lighting too. So despite of that, if it is dark at some places, we can definitely look into adding additional street lights before we go for flashing signs and all that. So the entire corridor should be well lit for nighttime, especially in summers. I mean, I assume people will ride cyclists when it's dark and things like that. So the corridor should be well lit, and it has, like I said, street lighting. We will definitely evaluate it, and if there is a need for additional lighting, please let us know.
That is my last question and/or comment. Does anybody else have any questions for our guys here? Sounds like my cat has a question, but he's not.
But I would like to add, though, first of all, I would like to thank everybody who attended this meeting tonight and provided us this opportunity to present all the three options to you. Please visit the project's website. And Lori, you can put the last slide on the screen where I have all my.
Absolutely.
Please. Okay. So first of all, I will post this PowerPoint on our project website. And then second, you can go to the project website and then fill out the public comments form. And my name and email address is posted on the project website. You can directly email me your comments or your preferred option. And also the same project website, like we mentioned during the meeting, that there are 3 concept plans which constitutes of several pages, because the corridor is like a long corridor. You can see what option 1 looks like, option 2 looks like, option 3 looks like, and in terms of widening, the bike lane markings and the buffer and all that. So if someone has time, and please, if they really want to evaluate one of the options, then go to the website and check those plans, and then feel free to provide me your comments and all that. You have my email address, my phone number, and the comment form.
We did just get one last question. Paul
Sure.
Daisy would like to know, for alternative 1, does the 11-foot wide median extend far enough that it could be used as a traffic lane to avoid land acquisition for alternative 2? Perhaps in conjunction with more narrow traffic lanes.
So the challenge there using the available median space is we're trying to provide left turn lanes for the 2 unsignalized intersections, Gracefield, O'Fallon, as well as when you're looking just to the east of Prosperity there, the auto dealership and everything. So we did try to use the available median space where we could to mitigate widening on the south side. And we did also look at lane width reduction to meet the Complete Streets Design Guide. Those would also be other things that would be kind of fine-tuned as design advances.
Okay. Well, with that, it looks like we have come to the end of our meeting. So everybody have a wonderful evening, and we look forward very much to hearing your comments and answering any questions you may have.
And lastly, I just want to thank Lori for hosting this meeting tonight, and thanks Mike for presenting on the county project website.
All right. Thanks,
Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
You too.
Thank you, everyone. Good night.